Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at the source material that's really defining the new space frontier.
It's a lot. The past 2 weeks of early 2026 have been incredibly dense.
We're seeing everything from humanity's imminent return to the moon to these huge industrial shakeups happening right here on the ground.
Right, and if you zoom out, the thread connecting all of it seems to be this
Yeah.
high-stakes trade-off. The U.S. is clearly prioritizing immediate defense and, commercial lunar goals
At the expense of what, exactly?
at the expense of its scientific leadership in planetary exploration, at least for the near term.
That's a huge claim. So our mission today, as always, is to calmly deliver the facts, look at the perspectives of the decision makers, and really just provide a clear outlook on all of this.
Before we jump in, we do want to acknowledge ProWave AI, the sponsor of this deep dive.
And it's important to note, the intelligence you're about to hear is generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application. And this isn't your standard news feed.
No, not at all. What makes this so unique is that Stylo News is a consumer version of a much bigger tool called Stylo Intel Ops.
And that's the software designed for enterprise, right? We're talking government, military, major corporations.
Exactly. So what that means is that you, the listener, are basically getting access to a tool that's built to support high-stakes global decision-making.
So how does it actually cut through all that noise? I mean, without getting too into the weeds.
Well, it really focuses on the result. It gathers what we call open source intelligence, or OSINT, from over 250 different sources. News, social media, forums, you name it.
In 20 different languages, no less.
In more than 20 languages. And it normalizes all of it, auto-translates, timestamps it. It builds a unified picture.
So it's not just a big data dump.
Not at all. The real power is in the chat. It uses something called retrieval augmented generation, or AG, which lets you ask these really complex questions.
And it cross-references all those sources instantly.
In under a second, usually. It gives you a concise, source-linked answer. It's intelligence on demand, so you can focus on strategy, not just searching for information.
That level of clarity is exactly what we need for this first topic. Let's start with the moon. NASA's Artemis II mission.
Truly historic.
I mean, this is poised to be the first crewed flight beyond low Earth orbit since, what, Apollo 17 in 1972.
That's right. The launch window opens around February 6th from Kennedy Space Center.
And this is more than just a trip around the moon, right? This has a very specific purpose.
Oh, absolutely. It's a 10-day lunar flyby, but it's really a stress test. We're testing all the critical Orion spacecraft systems. Life support, navigation, heat management, everything you need for the actual landing plan for 2028.
And NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman has made it very clear that hitting that schedule is the priority.
He has. But the crew itself is also a huge statement.
It is. The first woman, the first person of color to fly around the moon, and a Canadian astronaut as well. It really solidifies that international cooperation aspect.
It does. But it also raises the political stakes at home. You just can't afford a failure on a mission this high profile.
Which brings us to the core conflict we're seeing in the sources. Safety versus schedule.
Exactly. Isaacman is pushing for that 2028 landing goal, but there's serious pushback from within NASA.
From the engineers, from the inspector general, they're raising some red flags. What are the specific technical issues?
Well, two really stand out. First, that damage to the Orion capsule's heat shield they saw after the uncrewed Artemis I flight. That's a major concern.
So questions about whether it can survive re-entry.
Big questions. And second, some of the life support systems are still, technically untested in a real deep space environment.
So the critics aren't just asking for a delay, they're suggesting something more radical.
They are. They're recommending an unmanned Artemis II mission. Fly it without a crew to really vet those systems before you put human lives on the line.
So the debate really boils down to this.
Sure.
Is reestablishing U.S. leadership worth the accelerated risk?
That's the heart of it. But regardless of that debate, the local impact around Florida's Space Coast is undeniable. It's a massive boom. The whole area is cementing itself as the global hub.
And a lot of that is driven by commercial velocity, which means we have to talk about SpaceX.
You really do. Their paces. It's just on another level.
I mean, unprecedented doesn't even begin to cover it. The sources are confirming 165 orbital missions in 2025 alone.
165. That accounted for a staggering 85% of all U.S. launches.
85%. That's
Yeah.
that's a launch every other day.
Pretty much. If you live on the Space Coast, it's just the sound of a Tuesday. And we've seen it continue this year with missions like Starlink 688, on January 4th.
And that's just the Falcon 9. What's the latest with Starship, the vehicle that's supposed to get us to the moon and Mars?
Starship is moving fast. The Super Heavy booster for the 12th test flight is fully assembled down at Starbase in Texas.
And this is the new version, version 3.
Correct. Upgraded Raptor 3 engines, taller vehicle. The entire design is aimed squarely at its original goal, Mars.
But this is where we get to that trade-off you mentioned. This intense focus on near-Earth orbit, and the moon seems to have created a vacuum when it comes to Mars.
A profound one. It's a huge scientific sacrifice. For years, the flagship U.S. science mission was the Mars Sample Return, MSR.
Right, to bring back the samples from the Perseverance rover.
Samples that could tell us if there was ever life on Mars. I mean, decades of science locked in those rocks.
A cornerstone project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Congress cut the funding. The mission was estimated to cost around $11 billion.
And they approved how much?
$650 million. When your budget gets cut that drastically, you don't just build a smaller version. You cancel the project.
So NASA had to abandon it.
Functionally, yes. And SpaceX followed that lead almost immediately.
Elon Musk confirmed it. They canceled their own planned 2026 Mars missions.
For them, the priority is now squarely on NASA's Artemis program, specifically getting Starship's orbital refueling to work. That's the key technology for any deep space flight, whether it's to the moon or Mars. For now, Mars is on the back burner.
So with the U.S. stepping back from planetary science, who's stepping up?
The China National Space Administration, the CNSA, they are seizing this opportunity. Their Tianwen-3 mission is moving forward aggressively.
And that's their own sample return mission.
It is. They're aiming to bring back Martian soil by 2030, which would be a massive scientific and, symbolic victory.
And it's not just their government program. China's private sector is also getting more competitive.
Very competitive.
Yeah.
And more risk-tolerant. We saw Landspace test its reusable Zhuge 3 rocket. They are building a domestic capability that's going to challenge players like SpaceX very soon.
So as the race for the moon's south pole heats up, the race for scientific discovery is shifting east. And meanwhile, the whole orbital economy is just blossoming.
It really is. You see giants like Lockheed Martin starting to transition the Orion capsule for commercial flights. And in low Earth orbit, you've got Vast preparing its Haven 1 commercial space station for a launch this May. Every piece of the journey is being commercialized.
Which brings us to the industrial restructuring here at home. This L3Harris divestiture is a really big deal. It involves some truly historic assets.
It's a critical strategic move. L3Harris sold a 60% stake in its propulsion and power business to a firm called AE Industrial Partners.
For about $845 million. And the key asset there is the RL-10 engine.
That's the one. For anyone who doesn't know the history, the RL-10 is a veteran. It's the reliable upper stage engine that goes all the way back to the dawn of the space age. Selling it off tells you a lot about L3Harris's new focus.
Which is what, exactly?
4 defense priorities, missile systems, sensors, that sort of thing. But what's really telling is what they kept.
They held on to the RS-25 engine?
They kept sole ownership of the RS-25, the powerhouse core engine for the SLS rocket, the one that powers Artemis.
So the Heritage Space Shuttle engine.
The tried and true workhorse. By keeping that, they keep their central role in NASA's human spaceflight program.
And the buyer, AE Industrial Partners, is making a fascinating move by reaching into the past. They're planning to revive the Rocketdyne brand.
That name just carries so much weight. Apollo, the shuttle.
Yeah.
They're bringing it back. They're signaling they're not just maintaining the RL-10, they want to accelerate next-gen tech.
And the sources point specifically to nuclear propulsion.
Which everyone agrees is essential for any serious high-speed Mars missions in the future. It's a mix of history and future ambition.
And that restructuring is being matched by a major expansion of our launch infrastructure, specifically on the West Coast.
Right. The Air Force put out a request for a new launch complex, SLC-14, at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. This is critical.
Why?
2 reasons. First, it guarantees access to space for national security payloads. You're not solely reliant on Florida. Second, it just fosters more competition between the big players, SpaceX, Blue Origin, Relativity, for those heavy lift contracts.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. The pressure on Artemis, SpaceX's cadence, the retreat from Mars, the industrial pivot. What are the main patterns you're seeing?
The big picture is this dynamic balance of opposing forces.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have this intense competition for the moon, especially the South Pole and its resources.
Water ice, fuel.
Exactly. But that's balanced by this rapid, almost frantic commercialization of every other sector. And there seems to be this global acceptance that failure is just, part of the cost of moving this fast.
So looking at the decision makers, we can sort of group them into three main courses of action, or COAs. The first one is the most visible, the accelerated lunar timeline.
Yep. That's driven by Administrator Isaacman, backed by the White House and Congress. The goal is 2028, period. The sentiment there, which you see reflected in sources from China CNSA to Yahoo News, is just ambitious, confident.
But then you have the counter-argument, COA number 2, increased safety measures and diversification.
This is the voice of caution. The NASA engineers, the Inspector General, all worried about that heat shield. This is the pressure that's making NASA think about reopening lunar lander contracts just to mitigate the risk of relying only on Starship.
And the sentiment there from sources like PJ Media is much more cautious, skeptical.
Very. And finally, you have COA3, which is the big structural shift, the strategic defense pivot.
That's the L3 Harris sail, the new launch pad at Vandenberg.
It's the industrial reality. It's about ensuring U.S. leadership in reusable launch and pivoting to long-term defense tech, like advanced propulsion. And the sentiment in financial sources like Econo-Times or Spaceflight Now is very strategic, business-oriented.
So with all that in play, the next few weeks are absolutely critical. What are the key dates for people to watch?
Okay, keep your eyes on a few things. First, January 17th, that's the rollout of the SLS rocket and Orion for Artemis II to the launch pad.
Then the wet dress rehearsal.
In late January, yes. The full fueling and countdown test.
Yeah.
And then the big one, February 6th, when the launch window for the crewed flyby officially opens.
And we should also be watching for the next Starship test flight.
Absolutely. The 12th test flight of the new version 3 from Starbase. That's expected sometime in early 2026.
To leave you with one final thought, consider the real meaning behind that L3 Harris sail and the revival of the Rocketdyne name. It's a signal that the U.S. industrial base is restructuring to prioritize commercial access and long-term defense propulsion, like nuclear engines.
It's blending that historic American ambition with a very clear future focus.
It is, but the price of that pivot is the cancellation of the Mars sample return mission. It's a stark trade-off. We're effectively ceding near-term scientific leadership to China in order to secure our commercial and defense footing. That is the highest stakes decision in the long game of space.
And, that ability to connect the industrial news with the launch schedules and the geopolitical shifts, that's exactly what Stylo News is built to do. All the information you heard today was sourced and synthesized by the application.
You can download the mobile or computer app right now. You can completely customize your own news flow, pulling intelligence from hundreds of sources, including social media like X.
It's personalized intelligence, the same kind of tool global decision makers rely on, but for you.
So subscribe to Stylo News today. You can get that AI-powered news on demand at www.stylonews.com.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really appreciate your time.
And if there's a complex topic you want us to unpack, please send in your requests. Be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platform, and we'll be back soon with more intelligence.